Welcome to this episode of the Personal Development Podcast with Paola Castro and Michael J. Emery.
All right, well, welcome to the Personal Development Podcast. My name is Michael Emery, and I'm here with
Paola Castro.
And today we're going to talk about beginnings. So this is the third podcast that we're doing in the personal development journey, the personal development path. And one of the things that is really relevant for people that are starting out, and I would say that by the term starting out, I mean waking up and starting to realize that there is more that life has to offer. You don't have to follow the pre-programmed route that society seems to have outlined for you. And Paola had a really good insight in this when we were talking before we started recording. Do you want to share that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, when you were talking about beginnings, it just made me think how so many people don't know where to begin and where to start, or they feel stuck in their journey because we haven't had clear instruction on what to do, how to follow our hearts, how to follow our bliss, how to follow the calling. And it's a very current theme, and the people that have reached me for coaching or the people that I meet in my talks to say, you know, I don't know what I'm here for. Why am I here on earth? Why am I alive? Like, why am I here? What are even my gifts and talents? Because we tend to be following a script that we didn't even choose, that our parents kind of told us this is what you're supposed to do, make some money, have a good job, and that's about it. And society supported that script. And now, you know, we're finding out that we're doing that, but it's not fulfilling. So what do I do? Or I thought it was fulfilling and it was for a little bit, but now I'm stuck. I feel like I'm just following the rat race. So yeah, I think this is a very interesting topic for today. How to begin in our journey, like truly our journey and not someone else's journey, not copying what someone else did and maybe worked for them.
Perfect. So let's start with our routine. So we want to bring awareness to this time and space and treat it as though it's sacred. What we're doing here, I firmly believe that this is the sacred work. This is part of the greater work, and it requires intention. So go ahead, if you would, if you're watching this, any place, anytime, anywhere, and close your eyes and just bring your attention to your heart area, your heart chakra, your heart center, and start to breathe in and out deeply and slowly. You can inhale for 6 seconds and exhale for 6 seconds. Or if you can only manage 3 seconds or 2 seconds, that's fine too. But just bring your awareness to your heart. Just inhale deeply and exhale. And this time, try to do it a little bit deeper, hold a little bit longer. One last time. Go ahead and keep your eyes closed for just another moment. And lower your attention down to the soles of your feet. You might wiggle a toe or two, or just be calm, be still. And allow all of the concerns, anything else that's on your mind, to just wash away, float away. And imagine that above the top of your head, that there's a representation of the sun. And just allow this golden light to flow down the top of your head, down your spine, out your extremities, down through your feet, into the earth. And take another deep breath. Inhale and exhale. And open your eyes. All right, well, here we are. And we're going to talk about beginnings today. And I wanted to share something with you all. And it's something you've probably seen before, at least if you grew up. Actually, I wanted to share something else first. There's a really powerful quote that I read maybe 15 years ago. And it said, "The mass of men lead quiet lives of desperation." And this was written by Henry David Thoreau. And it was written probably 150 years ago, I think. And so I would say that, men, women, it both plays into that. Most people are going through the motions of going through this, the game that we probably played when we were in grade school or our younger years. When I don't know if you had this experience, Paola, correct me if you didn't, but I'm guessing that a lot of people had the experience of looking around, kind of like watching the people that seem to know what they're doing, watching those people out of the corner of your eyes, like, okay, if the cool guy or the cool girl does this or that, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to be like them. And it's really a game, if it were. And it's something that creates a lot of desperation for people, because you're always in that reactionary mode. You don't know what the quote unquote leader is going to do next. And so it tends to keep a person off track and out of balance. And I wanted to share this quote from the book, Alice in Wonderland. And you may have watched the video, the Disney movie, or some of the recreations, or even read the book. I highly recommend reading the book because it has a completely different angle. But there was this really interesting part for me when Alice is talking with the Cheshire Cat. And this is essentially the dialogue. Alice says, "Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?" And the cat responds, "That depends a good deal on where you want to get to." "I don't much care where," said Alice. "Then it doesn't matter which way you go," said the cat. "Well, so long as I get somewhere," Alice added as an explanation. "Oh, you're sure to do that," said the cat, "if you only walk long enough." And I feel that a lot of us we're going through life and we don't have that kind of clarity or direction. And it's really a frightening process. And I'd say that it possibly then leads into what some people might consider to be like clinical depression if they get stuck in this long enough, where they're like, I don't have a purpose. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. And you're trying to follow the social cues, the familial cues, and they aren't really resulting in what one wants to experience. Yeah. And what we wanted to share is that if you're experiencing that, or you've experienced that in the past, perfect, because that's just a sign that you are on the right path. And today you have the option of doing something differently.
Beautiful. And also I want to add that I believe we do this because, at least as children, we want to be like our peers are. We want to follow what the popular kid is doing, because it's very essential for our development to belong, to be part of. And, I remember being a little girl and as a teenager, how all my group of friends, we all did the same, we all dressed the same, we all spoke the same, because it was a way of telling our psyche, our subconscious mind, oh, you belong, you're enough. But there is a point where you evolve, you grow, you get into your 20s, you start understanding who you are, that you're not everyone, that you're an individual, like we said in the first podcast. We are an individual and we have your very unique expression of the universe. And then we start, seeing that we might not, belong to that group, or that might not resonate with us, but because we've been so trained, not only biologically we wanted to belong, but also the society has said, follow what everyone is doing and you'll be okay, you'll be loved. And, on the first podcast, you were talking about Maslow's and needs, pyramid of needs, and belonging and being loved. It's a need of a human being, because if you don't belong, if you're not loved, that means that at some point you're going to die if you don't belong to any tribe. So knowing that we do that as part of as a biology, but knowing that it gets out of proportion, or it just gets so misunderstood, what society is trying to impose, all of these ways that are not resonating with our soul, at least it gives me more compassion for my brain, more compassion to myself, to forgive myself for not knowing, for saying, okay, I don't know, because actually nobody has really taught me how to know what I want and who am I. In fact, not because they didn't want to tell me, it's because they didn't know either.
They didn't know.
So I just wanted to say that part. And another thing I have found, and we can talk about this later a little bit more maybe, is that we keep trying to follow what everyone's doing because first we want to belong, and that gives us a sense that we might be enough, because the fear among all human beings is not being good enough, right? So if I am not part of the crowd, I'm already feeling I'm not good enough. So that's a confirmation if I'm not like everyone else, if I'm not belonging. So it could be very scary sometimes to start walking your own path, because it triggers that big fear, like, oh well, if I don't belong, then I'm not enough, then I'm not worthy, then I'm not going to be loved, and then I'm going to die. So I know it sounds dramatic, but at a brain level, that's how the brain perceives it. So
the reptilian brain going,
right,
we've got to survive. So it's actually kind of funny. So I got a question for you, Paola. When you were a teenager, do you remember or maybe even younger than that, and this is the power of social programming, but do you remember like a boy band or some sort of like music group or something that you and all of your friends loved? Like you were just crazy about these, maybe even actors or something like that. But there was some.
Oh my God, yeah.
You want to say who it was?
Oh, I can tell you. I remember like it was yesterday. My entire room was completely wrapped with the posters of this bands. Well, I love Backstreet Boys, and I love Brad Pitt, and all of those blonde kids that were so exotic for us here in Costa Rica.
So
we love the boy bands for sure.
So it's funny because, like, you know, looking back at that, it's something that's comical, but at that moment, would you say that you probably even had like a degree of infatuation with like a certain, you know, actor or band? You're like, oh my God, if only, you know, he would be my boyfriend. Life would be perfect.
God, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
and now as an adult, in hindsight, looking back at that, it's probably pretty silly, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
So what if, for the person that's watching this right now or listening right now, what if everything that you've been striving to do and create in your life is just as silly as a teenage girl's infatuation with, you know, these Hollywood actors or, you know, Disney's characters that they're actually creating? I mean, there's an actual science. It's an art. Like the pop industry is a business, and they are creating these icons or idols for every generation, and they've been doing it for decades. And
that's a brilliant question, Mike. That's a brilliant question. Carry on. I just had to say how brilliant that question was.
Well, it's something, because the social brainwashing that we go through, the social programming is so powerful that we don't really realize that it's happening at that time. And I remember, you know, seeing the responses, and actually even going further back, like talking to my mother about the Beatles. And she would tell me how girls would like go to the concerts and they would faint. Like they were so like caught up and they would faint. And so I don't want to have this be just like one-sided and we're just talking about women. I'd say that guys too. When I was in high school, there would actually be fights, like fist fights with the rival town, their football team or basketball team. Like it was that serious. Like, you know, we would get caught up in these you know, stupid acts of doing things because we were so programmed, like to be part of this tribe, you had to do a certain thing. And it's something that happens today. I mean, it's something that happens with gangs, obviously, but it's happening at a deeper level. Like, you know, the person that grows up and they struggle and they're trying to become, you know, executive level at their corporation, or they're trying to, do whatever it is, or fit into a certain, neighborhood or social class. It's programming. It's social programming.
Yeah. I want to say something that I heard from an astrologer once. She said, be aware of not confusing desire with memory. She said, and I think it goes along with your question. What if all of those things that you're following now at some point they were a desire of the moment, but now they're a memory?
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking it is a current desire, that it should be a current desire, but in fact, it's just a memory of something that you wanted a long time ago, that you thought you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to make that distinction, that something that you wanted 10 years ago doesn't mean that you want it now, because you have grown, you have evolved. So, yeah.
Yeah, so there's the social cues that play into us or our lives, and we could see that. You could take the network television show Friends was a really powerful one for a generation, and I would say the Kardashians would be another one. A lot of reality TV, all of these TV series, and I would say that especially when they're network, they're mainstream, or magazines that you go to the grocery store, the supermarket, and you see, these magazines at the checkout stand. I would consider most of those to be attempts at social programming. And in many cases, it's manufactured dissent. So it's trying to break apart values, if I would say it that way. If a person doesn't know what their values are, or what they value, you're almost hopeless, because then you believe you're like the victim. You're like, oh yeah, they're doing that to me, or this is my problem, or you start to personalize these things that they're promoting on the magazines or in the TV series, and you start to take it as though it's, if you can find that solution. It's almost like they're creating Hegelian dialectic. They're creating the problem so that they can then provide the solution.
Mm.
And it's not always happening, but I believe it's happening a lot if you're not aware of yourself. And so the next level of finding a path is the path that a family outlines for you. And I would say that there's two areas of failure in this. There's the family structure is too strict. And then there's the family where there is no structure.
Mm.
It's kind of like a failure in either direction. And so that could be, the broken home, the single parent kind of situation, or it could be the overbearing parent, the parent that doesn't allow for a child to grow and to have experiences. Does that make sense? There's like too much protection.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And within that, I think that there's struggles within different cultures, different communities. And growing up in Latin America, Paola, I'm sure that you had experiences that people that say grew up in Australia or Europe, Western Europe, or in the Northern America, USA, Canada, probably didn't have.
Yep.
What would you say some of those were? I just as an outsider, I would say that there's a lot of shaming around.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember, for example, you had to go to church. You got to be very, as a girl too. You're treated differently than a boy.
Mm-hmm.
Boys can do more. Boys can drink and have sex because that makes them a man. But as a girl, and I have a brother, so he had more freedom that I had, because they have to keep my family had to keep my
your honor,
reputation intact,
yes,
right? My reputation. So I remember that the topic of sex was a lot of shame on that. You get married when you have sex, when you get married, otherwise you won't own the white dress, and things like that when I started having friends from other countries, they were like, no, my mom is buying my birth control, and I was like, that my family would never happen. So things like that comes from a very religious background, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I could speak to that, because my upbringing was pretty religious in and of itself. So but I could see that from other friends where their parents were a lot more relaxed about about life in terms of just natural occurrences, sex, partying, having
Yep.
fun, experiences. And I think that there are positives and negatives when it comes to that. It's not always the best thing. I would say that probably going slow is not bad. But at the same time, I'd also argue the point that it's possible to install a compulsion, talking about this from like an NLP perspective, where, for example, if like I grew up in a house where you weren't allowed to have junk food. My mom was a dental hygienist. And so there was rarely ever soda. There was rarely ever sweets, chocolate, that kind of stuff. And I remember going out and just hoarding those things. Like if I could get away, I'd be like, I would drink, 2 liters of Coca-Cola because I could. And I wasn't going to get in trouble, but it was something you couldn't do in the house. Now, I wasn't aware that, that was detrimental to your health. I was, a 14-year-old kid. Nobody was saying, well, the reason why you don't do that is because, I don't know. I remember playing basketball games and drinking, a bottle of Coke, not 2 liters, but, like the 700 milliliter, a little bit bigger than a can, 12 ounces, 14 ounces, whatever it is. I remember drinking that before going to a basketball game, and I had so much nervous energy, and then I just like collapsed. Like I couldn't play. But nobody ever said, yeah, you know what you did? You just got a massive insulin spike.
Well, they didn't know probably that was gone.
It was just like, you don't do that. But there wasn't the reason why. And I think that really that's one of the intentions that I have in this series is to start to explore a lot of the reasons why that maybe your parents couldn't tell you, or maybe you're in the process where you're just starting to have certain experiences, and there's a lot of whys that somebody with more experience could help you to navigate those. Not that we're going to tell you what to do, but we can say, hey, look out for this, or pay attention to that, and be careful of what might happen next. And so family, I think, it's a really powerful factor in your personal development, because it creates your paradigm. It's essentially what allows you to create a mental map of possibilities. And there's certain things that just aren't placed on that map because you don't have it in your family's awareness. And I would say that a lot of that also could be tied into what, in a religious or spiritual context, could be referred to as like a generational curse, like poverty or addictions or abuse. A lot of the negative things that families tend to pass on, I would say that those start with that family pattern that is created there. And I would say that it's something that has to be broken. And I believe that when an individual breaks that, there's a process that I use, and you could use it. It's called Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian forgiveness pattern. But I believe when somebody starts to go through that process and they start to do their own personal healing, that with that pattern, not only do you do it for yourself, but you do it for your ancestors. And I believe that when you do that, you sever that link. And it's a belief of mine. I'm not saying it's a reality, but I choose to believe, I could be, proven wrong here, but I choose to believe that changes your DNA.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's the study of epigenetics, right?
Yeah.
When you start creating a different environment for your body, you start signaling new genes and being above the gene and creating a different destiny for yourself. So I 100% believe what you're saying. Yeah. And there's science backing it up.
Yeah. The biology of belief, Bruce Lipton's work, and others. But when you do that, and I believe it's an extremely important thing to do, and that's actually the assignment for today, is to go through the Ho'oponopono pattern and to clean up your ancestry, knowing that your future lineage will benefit from that you'll be passing on different DNA. And so the last element that I wanted to talk about in terms of paths, and this is kind of the most unusual one. I think it used to be the most, before organized religion was so strong, um, I would say that it was the original path, but it seems to be like the most scarce path today, and that's the mystical path. And so that is the perennial philosophy, or the individual having the experience in the universe, having that direct divine experience, and then bringing from that experience an associated meaning, like a sense of purpose or direction. And I think that's something that we would see in what would be considered to be pagan religions today, or shamanistic practices, or even just a la carte spiritual belief systems where you're choosing a little bit of everything from everywhere. But I think that that's something that most people that are following a fundamental religion, they don't experience that, even though the possibility is there. And you look at all of the founders, like, in Christianity, you could look at the disciples, the apostles, the people that were going out there and doing all these great works, and were really helping others in their lives and having these wonderful experiences, and sometimes terrible experiences too. But the average Christian would look at those people and be like, yeah, that was them, and that's what the books were written by them or about them, but that's not me in my life. Those things don't happen. And I'm like, okay, well, why not? Should. The power is there. It should be happening. And so I believe that the mystical experience is there. And so Paola actually has quite the experience in this. Do you want to share a little bit about where you work and what happens there?
Well, I work at a beautiful center in Costa Rica. It's called Rhythmia Life Advancement Center. In this place, we serve plant medicine from the Amazon. And I have had the privilege to experience with it. And everything that I've known intellectually with these plants, I have been able to put it in my heart, in my beingness, in my DNA, in every cell of my body, so that it's not only a nice concept, but it's that you're experiencing divinity, you're experiencing the 99.9% that we are, which is energy. You travel to different dimensions. So I think, every time I've had an experience with plant medicine, I always think that the entire world should, test this or try this at least once. But I am aware that a lot of people will be scared. They'll be like, no, I don't want to do it. And it's not the only way. I believe meditation can take you there. It just takes longer. Prayer or any other spiritual practice can take you, into your beingness. But the thing with medicine, they take you into that mystical world, into that mystical dimension, is that it breaks through the veil. It breaks through the programming so effectively that you can remember. And people are not going to find anything new. When I've had this mystical experience, I just go like, oh, I knew this and I forgot. I knew this when I was a little girl, but I forgot because I got so distracted with the world. And I think it has given me a great deal of courage to pursue my path, to get almost as a confirmation that I'm supposed to be doing this, that my soul has chosen this path. So if you're watching this and you want to explore that world, I would say it's one of the best things I've done in my life. It's not the only way. And, some people get religious about it too. And then when you get dogmatic about it, then now you're getting into an extreme. So everything, I would say to be particularly with a grain of salt and be discerning. Yeah. But definitely me being exposed to something different than Christianity. It's the same following Christ consciousness, which is love and compassion and kindness, following that, but also listening from Pachamama. That's what plant medicine is all about, like having Mother Earth teach us about ourselves, about the human race, about our, how is it that we forget it once we get in the dream? You remember that this is a dream, that we're dreaming, all of us right now. So all of these mystical things that I didn't get I wasn't exposed to this when I was growing up. In fact, still, I would be more aware to speak this with certain audiences, as it will be like, oh, wait a minute, that's against God, you know? So,
Even though God created the plants.
right. Yeah. It's just, people get fearful, and religion has done that. They just infuse fear. Be fearful so you don't question.
Yeah.
Because if you question, then you're going to go to hell. You just keep doing what we what we tell you to do. So anyway, as to conclude about this, definitely, I believe that the universe knew that we're going to forget so much about who we really are, that it was left to us, these beautiful plants, as a way of remembering.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it was I believe Terence McKenna said that with the psychedelic experience or hallucinogens, one can't help but have the experience. And I've done a lot of work with NLP, hypnosis, visualization, meditation, and I've done that with clients too. And there are frankly people that just aren't willing to go there. And I look at it from the outside and I'm like, okay, you're resisting. And I could push, but what's the point of that? If the person's not ready. And the challenge and the opportunity with using plant medicine is that you have an experience. It's probably not going to be the same experience as your neighbor or the other person in the class with you, but you're going to have an experience. And it's really powerful. At the same time, I'll say it's not for everybody. It's something to be taken very seriously, extremely seriously.
Yeah. And people have done it when they have resistance. They don't want to open up, and they just don't have any experience.
Yeah, you go in and you surrender. And I've done a few different things over the course of my life. With psilocybin tea, mushrooms, and always in the format of ritual and ceremony. And I also did combo, which is the frog venom, and I did ayahuasca one time, and it was a powerful, beautiful experience. And at this point in my life, I don't feel the need to do it again. But I'll tell you that at the time that I did it, it wasn't on the radar. It was like this possibility. And I was actually with Paola and one of her friends. I was just, observer in a conversation in a car, and we were driving someplace, and it just hit me like, you're going to do ayahuasca. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm not ready. I don't, are you sure? But it was like so convincing. And I think that's the thing of just being open to the universe. And I think that with all of those experiences, even meditation, doing something like a Vipassana meditation or something like that, they're not necessary to do these, to be on your personal development path. And I would say that when Paola and I both started, we're talking a decade, 15 years ago or more, and these are more recent experiences. And I think it's really good to have a firm foundation in terms of somebody that my personal recommendation would be like, if you're considering doing, hallucinogens or ayahuasca, always do it with a guide or a shaman or curandero, somebody that knows what they're doing, that has experience doing it. And to meditate, to spend time doing hypnosis, self-hypnosis, visualization, to experience altered states of consciousness. For example, I've got brainwave audio programs, which will help you to get into different altered states of consciousness. Practice with those before, so that you have an idea of what you might be experiencing. And still, there's no guarantees, but it's a strong suggestion to at least prepare and to take it seriously, do it with intentionality and ceremony. And so that mystical path, I think, is something that it's been shut down. And that's what I really hope to bring back with this series and the products that I create, the programs that I create, and also things that Paola has created. It's all that process of peeling the onion and getting to know yourself. You're going to cross over the same layers, but with a higher degree of awareness, a higher degree of intentionality, and hopefully more purpose. And that's really the the meta picture that I have for you as a viewer is that not to just focus on healing your past, but learning how to manage your present. And then what do you do with that? How do you convert that into something that that makes this world a better place? You don't have to do that, but I think that's the highest calling, and to do it with a degree of art, like an artist. You look at this and you go, this is my tapestry, or this is my instrument, or this is what I pour my life into. And that way you've got an emotional outlet that you can channel your creativity into. And I think it's a really powerful thing.
I think it is a very powerful thing. I love this topic, Mike. Thank you so much for bringing all this information to all of us. And I'm glad I got to give my insight too. But what I love the most is the suggestion to do Ho'oponopono. I know sometimes we remain stuck, or we don't know what is next or where to begin, because resentment is one of the biggest incarcerators. Do you say that? There's a philosopher that said, when you forgive, you liberate a prisoner, and then finding out at the end that the prisoner was you. Yeah. And I think one of the first steps, one of the most basics but profound steps in this path of personal development, is to start forgiving yourself, forgiving your past, forgiving everything, liberating yourself. And then soon enough, after you do the process of peeling the onion and all of that, you'll understand that there's nothing to forgive. That's the radical forgiveness. But then we start doing that. And Ho'oponopono, I've never practiced it too much, but this week you are the third person that talks about it. So I think it's coming up. I'll check it out one more time. Yeah. I think it's just for me to talk more about it too. But it's a great tool, because people sometimes like, well, how do I forgive? But that is a specific tool for forgiveness.
Yeah. And I would say that, personal development is personal responsibility. And the biggest thing that I see, if we go back to the social path, the path that society tries to guide you down, and that is to create victims. Everybody is perpetually offended. You can't go onto Facebook or social media or Twitter and without seeing outrage here, outrage there. Everybody's mad at this. Oh, I can't believe that. And to realize that you're not the victim. No matter what your background is, your culture, your ethnicity, your nationality, your age, your gender, what you identify as, you're not the victim. That is a choice. And so part of breaking free from that, if you want your life to change, got to forgive. And it might be a daily process for decades. And you might think that you have everything figured out, everything is forgiven, and then new content comes up. Perfect.
Right. Yeah. Forgiveness is
clean house.
Right. Forgiveness is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah. It's continual. It's ongoing. So, but I recommend, there are so many resources on YouTube for Ho'oponopono. I have a program in my app called Full Forgiveness. It's like Ho'oponopono plus additional visualizations. That's really powerful. And, go out there, do that this week. Just start to clear the slate with, and the easiest part to start with is your parents. We always have parent content, and just forgive and let it go. And you might find that it's a process, and you do it multiple times. And if you struggle with it, forgive yourself for not being able to forgive.
Oh, I love that. That's true compassion for self.
Yeah. That's probably even a better place to start, is with yourself. But, that always comes up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also wrote a book about freeing yourself. It's called Free, The Path to Fulfillment. So check it out on Amazon, and you can get the ebook version or the printed version.
Very powerful stuff. Well, thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back with another series, another episode soon.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
All right. Take care.